My name is Elena Marsh. I'm 46 years old. And for the past 12 years, I've been the one everyone in my family quietly depended on without ever being seen or truly valued. It started the way it often does in families' small things. Elena, can you cover the electric bill this month? Elena, I just need to borrow a few hundred till Friday. Elena, I'd do it for you if the roles were reversed. And I believe them. I did. I had a good job, worked my way up in a regional hospital's administrative office. Nothing flashy, but stable. After my divorce at 34, I moved back home to Greystone, a small town that thrives on appearances and Sunday brunches with empty smiles. I moved into my parents' basement temporarily, at least that's what I told myself. They were getting older. I could help with the groceries, help fix up the house, help my younger brother Darren with gas money, help my older sister Nina get back on her feet after yet another failed business idea. I became the helper, the doer, the invisible backbone. I paid for home repairs. I covered Darren's speeding tickets. I even co-signed a small loan when Nina decided to launch her organic candle and kombucha line. They all said thank you, at first, but slowly things shifted. Why are you always so serious, Elena? You need to relax more. Live a little. Elena, you wouldn't understand. You're not really a parent. It stung, especially that last one. I couldn't have children, and they knew that. I tried to laugh it off, to play the peacekeeper. But the truth is, I was buying my place in this family, and deep down I knew it. The baby shower incident. It all started to crack one Saturday morning. We were throwing a baby shower for Nina's second child. Well, technically, I was throwing it. I paid for the venue, the cake, the decorations. I even designed the invitations. On the day of the event, I arrived early to set everything up. The room looked beautiful, pink and sage green everywhere. I was proud. As the guests trickled in, I noticed Nina was late. Typical. But what wasn't typical was how she arrived with Darren holding a giant college acceptance sign. That's right, my brother chose that moment to announce he was going back to school. Community college business major. And Nina. She clapped, laughed, and said loudly, "That's my real support system right there." People turned, looked at me. Some laughed. I smiled politely. Inside, I was cracking. I waited until the cake was cut. Then I excused myself. Nobody followed, not even Mom. The shift I didn't see coming. That night, I sat in my living room in silence. I'd spent nearly $400 on that shower. That's 2 mortgage payments. And still somehow I felt like I didn't exist. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just stared at my bank app, at the balance slowly dwindling, at the loan I took out for Nina that she hadn't paid a cent toward, at the utilities still in my name on my parents' house. I started making a spreadsheet. Not out of anger, out of clarity. 12 years. Over $42,000 in temporary help loans, unexpected expenses. And that wasn't including the hours, the errands, the rides, the favors. A call that changed the tone. 2 days later, Nina called. "Elena, can you watch Lily for the weekend? I've got this retreat with Gavin," he says. "It's going to be life-changing." "No," I said. A pause. "Wait, what?" I said, "No, Nina." There was silence on the other end. The kind that says, "Who do you think you are?" "Elena, are you okay? You're acting." Differently, I finished for her. "Yeah, I am." I hung up before she could respond. The fallout begins. Within 48 hours, the family group chat exploded. "Mom, Nina says you're acting distant." "What's going on?" "Darren, you're really not gonna help her out. She needs this." "Dad, you're not being very gracious, Elena." And there it was, that word, gracious. As if my entire worth in this family came from what I gave. As if the second I stopped giving, I stopped existing. I typed back slowly. "I've given enough. This is me choosing peace." Then I left the group chat. Closing part 1. That weekend, I sat alone. I ordered takeout. I took a walk by the lake. I read a book I'd been meaning to finish for 5 years. And for the first time in a long time, I felt still. But I also knew this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. Because people like my family. They don't like losing their favor bank. And when the ATM stops dispensing, they come knocking. Hard. But this time I was ready. When you've spent years being quiet, the moment you finally speak, it feels like an earthquake. But not because you've shouted. Because the silence you leave behind is deafening. After I left the family group chat, things got quiet for a few days. Almost too quiet. Then came the texts. From Mom. I don't know what Nina told you, but she's pregnant, Elena. Pregnant women are emotional. Don't be cruel. From Darren. We're family. You don't just walk away from that. From Dad. Your sister's done a lot for you too, you know. You lived in our basement rent-free. That one hit hard. I'd been paying their mortgage and property tax for 8 years. The house was technically still in their name, but the bank draft came from my account. They just never asked questions. Or maybe they did and liked the answers too much to speak them aloud. The smear campaign begins. A week after the baby shower incident, I bumped into a family friend at the grocery store. Mrs. Hughes, sweet older woman always wearing that pink lipstick and big sunglasses. She looked at me, leaned in close, and said, "You know, people are starting to talk." I tilted my head. Talk about what? Oh, just that. Nina's really struggling, and your parents are so worried. And you know you've always been the strong one. But strength without compassion. Well, she trailed off, left the sentence hanging like a hook, like bait. I didn't bite. I just smiled, said nothing, and walked away. But inside, I was shaking. They were painting me as cold, as heartless, as selfish. Because I said no. The call that crossed the line. That night, Dad called. His voice was calm, too calm. Your mother's blood pressure has been up lately. All this tension isn't helping. You know she's not young anymore. I stayed silent. He continued. All we're asking is that you don't make things harder. I'm not making anything harder, I said. I just stopped enabling it. Elena, he said slowly, family is about sacrifice. I could feel it rising in my chest, the heat, the grief, but I didn't let it pour out. Instead, I asked him, Dad, in the last 12 years, have you ever asked Nina or Darren to sacrifice for me? There was a pause. That's not the point, he replied. But it was. It always had been. A surprise visit. 3 days later, Nina showed up at my doorstep. Unannounced, holding Lily in one arm and a Tupperware container in the other. I made chicken lasagna, she said, like that would fix everything. I didn't invite her in, but she walked past me anyway. Sat down like it was her living room. I don't know what this is about, she started. But you're really hurting Mom. I stared at her. The woman who had publicly erased me at her baby shower. The sister who still owed me over $18,000 in unpaid loans. The person who never once asked how I was doing. It's not about Mom, I said. It's about me finally drawing a line. She rolled her eyes. Oh God, therapy talk. No, I said. It's survival talk. She looked genuinely confused. You've always been so strong, Elena. I didn't know you needed anything. I needed respect. I said it softly, but it landed like thunder. She scoffed. You're being dramatic. Then she left. Didn't even take the lasagna. The ally I didn't expect. That night my phone buzzed. A message from an old cousin, Michelle, from Mom's side. We hadn't spoken in years. Her message was short. Saw what's going on. Just wanted you to know I see you. And you're not crazy. It was the first message in weeks that didn't ask me for something. That didn't try to guilt me. That didn't come wrapped in expectation. We got coffee 2 days later. She'd been through something similar. Different details, same structure. Family sees you as a resource, not a person. You stop giving and suddenly you're the problem, she said. I nodded. I just want them to see me. She stirred her drink. They see you. They just don't value what they see. That's the difference. Time to reclaim. That weekend I sat down at my desk, opened the spreadsheet I'd been keeping. Line after line of money transferred, gifts given, debts unpaid. I printed it all. Then I wrote a letter. To my parents. Not out of spite. Out of need for closure. Dear Mom and Dad, I love you. But I cannot continue to live as the family safety net emotionally or financially. I've tallied 12 years of contributions totaling over $42,000, not including time, energy, and mental labor. This was never meant to be transactional. But it has become unsustainable. Effective immediately, I will no longer be financially supporting the household or covering anyone else's responsibilities. This isn't a punishment. It's a boundary. I hope you can understand. Love, Elena. I left it in their mailbox the next morning. The immediate reaction: radio silence. No calls, no texts, no emails. Until a week later, I got served a notice from my parents' mortgage lender. They were defaulting, and the house technically still in their name was facing foreclosure. They had stopped paying once I left, assuming, I guess, I would cave, that I'd rush in and fix it. But I didn't. And that's when they did the unthinkable. They called my employer. Ending part 2. HR pulled me into a meeting. Said someone had called anonymously questioning my mental stability, suggesting I was acting erratically. But the voice on the line, they recognized it. They knew it was Darren. That was when I knew. This wasn't just emotional anymore. This was war. But the thing they didn't understand was that peace doesn't come from giving in. It comes from standing your ground, even if you're standing alone. When your family tries to destroy your livelihood because you stopped paying their bills, it shifts something inside you. Not anger, not even grief. Clarity. I walked out of HR that afternoon with my head held high. Not because I was okay, but because I finally understood something deep and irreversible. They never really loved me unconditionally. They loved what I did for them. And now that I wasn't doing it, I was disposable. The first legal step. I called a lawyer the next morning. Her name was Celeste Moreno, recommended by Michelle. Sharp. Practical. Didn't blink when I explained what was happening. They're not just manipulative, she said calmly. They're reckless. And if they called your employer, that's defamation. I blinked. You think I should sue my own family? Celeste looked at me squarely. I think your family already made this a legal matter. I'm just helping you level the field. Document everything. That became my new mantra. I started compiling emails, old text messages, bank statements, screenshots of loan apps I filled out with Nina's name, receipts from Home Depot showing the roofing materials I paid for, mortgage statements in my inbox, proof I'd been covering the bills, even the group chat history, where Mom joked that I was their walking credit card with feelings. It hurt to read, but it was proof, undeniable, time-stamped. The inheritance discovery. One night, while helping Michelle clean out a storage unit she had inherited from her late mother, we found an old family file box. Inside it, a copy of my grandfather's original will. He had left the house, our family home, to me. Not to my parents. To me. But somehow, by the time it went through probate, the title had shifted. I was too young then. Didn't know anything about legal rights or property. Celeste reviewed the documents. Your parents falsified a transfer after your grandfather passed, she said. My throat tightened. Can we prove it? She nodded slowly. We can challenge it. But it's going to be ugly. The turning point. It all came to a head at a family dinner. Yes, after all that had happened, they still invited me. I think they assumed I was bluffing, that I wouldn't show, that I couldn't stand the silence, the distance. So I went. Walked in with a plain manila folder under my arm. Wore a gray blouse and black pants, neutral. Clean. Not dramatic. They barely looked up from their plates. Dad muttered, "Oh, you showed." I sat, ate half my salad in silence. Let them talk over me like always. Then I opened the folder. Dropped 3 things on the table. A letter from my lawyer regarding the inheritance dispute. A notarized breakdown of the money I'd contributed over 12 years. A cease and desist order regarding contact with my employer. The room fell dead quiet. Mom's fork clattered onto her plate. Nina's mouth hung open. Darren's face flushed. What the hell is this? Dad asked. Boundaries, I said, and stood up. The fallout begins. That night I turned off my phone. I knew the storm was coming. By morning, it had arrived. Voicemails, emails, even Facebook posts. Nina accused me of tearing the family apart. Darren posted a meme about selfish people hiding behind therapy language. Mom went for guilt. After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us. But that was the thing. They hadn't done for me in over a decade. They just took, expected, assumed, and I let them, until now. Celeste's strategy. A week later, we filed a formal claim to challenge the property deed. The house where I'd paid the bills, made the repairs, funded every update, was legally under dispute. Celeste was methodical, cold even, but it helped. She reminded me that this wasn't personal, it was legal. Because sometimes family leaves you no choice. The message that broke me. Late one evening, I received a message from my mother. Not on text, but a handwritten letter. It started sweet. Mentioned the stuffed bear I used to sleep with, the way I'd sing in the car, the birthday where I cried because my cake melted. Then it shifted. You've always been so serious, Elena, so easily wounded. We didn't mean to hurt you, but you just keep pulling away. That's not love. That's abandonment. And there it was. The inversion. The rewriting of the story. I wasn't the one abandoned. I was the one doing the leaving. It shattered me. Not because it was true, but because part of me still wanted it to be. Still wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, they'd change. The visit from Lily. 2 days later, Nina showed up again. This time with Lily alone. No boyfriend, no lasagna, no demands. Just a sleepy little girl holding a drawing. It was a stick figure with brown hair and glasses, labeled Aunt L. Lily wanted to see you, Nina said softly. We didn't talk much. I made tea. Lily played with the cat. Before she left, Nina looked at me with something I hadn't seen in her eyes for a long time. Not entitlement, not manipulation, not even guilt. Just fatigue. Mom's not doing well, she said. Dad's furious. Darren. I nodded. And you? She sighed. I think I believed you'd never leave. That no matter how we acted, you'd always show up. I did. For years. I know. She swallowed. I just didn't think you'd ever stop. Ending part 3. As the door closed behind them, I stood there for a long time, holding Lily's drawing in my hand, fingers trembling. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was something else. Resolved. They could smear me, gaslight me, rewrite the story in every church circle and family text chain. But I had something now that none of them could take. My voice, my proof, and finally, my peace. There's no handbook for what it feels like to take your own parents to court. No therapist prepares you for the kind of grief that comes from choosing justice over blood. But I wasn't choosing out of anger anymore. I was choosing out of necessity, out of self-respect. The truth is, if I didn't stand up for myself now, I would never stand up again. The first hearing. We arrived early that day. The courthouse in downtown Greystone was small. Stiff benches, beige walls. That faint smell of old paper and disappointment. Celeste sat beside me, calm as always. I was anything but. Across the aisle, my parents sat together. Darren in a cheap gray suit. Nina noticeably absent. I wasn't surprised. She hated confrontation. Preferred gossip and implication to direct conflict. Dad didn't look at me. Mom did. Her face was unreadable, not angry, not sorrowful, just blank, as if I were a stranger asking for something she didn't think I deserved. The argument. Celeste laid out our case clearly. I had covered the mortgage for 8 years, paid for home improvements. There was a copy of my grandfather's original will leaving the house to me. The title had mysteriously changed after his death without proper legal channels, and my parents had continued to represent the home as theirs while silently defaulting on the payments the second I stopped. When Celeste presented my financial records itemized year by year, month by month, there was a shift in the room. Even the judge raised an eyebrow. You're telling me she made these payments and there was no formal agreement, he asked. Dad shrugged. She was living in the house. We assumed she was contributing. $1,800 a month, Celeste countered. Plus renovations, property taxes, and private contractors paid out of her account. He shifted uncomfortably. She wanted to help. The moment that broke me. Mom took the stand next. Celeste was careful, respectful. Mrs. Marsh, she asked, did you know your father's original will left the property to Elena? My mother hesitated. I don't remember. Celeste showed the document. Does this refresh your memory? She blinked, swallowed. It does. So when did the title transfer occur? It was a long time ago. We were under pressure. Elena was young. She wouldn't have known how to handle a property. I felt something crack inside me, and yet it wasn't rage. It was a quiet kind of sorrow. The kind that confirms something you've suspected your whole life but didn't want to believe. They never thought I was capable. Or maybe they didn't want me to be. Outside the courthouse. After the hearing, I walked out alone. Celeste stayed back to file some motions. Darren followed me into the parking lot, his voice low, controlled. You think this makes you noble? You think taking Mom and Dad to court is going to fix your lonely little life? I turned. No. But at least I won't have to pay for yours anymore. He sneered. I hope you're happy. I didn't respond, because I wasn't. I wasn't happy. I wasn't vindicated. I was simply awake. Unexpected witness. 2 weeks later, we had a second hearing. This time, Nina showed up. To my surprise, she sat with me and Celeste, not our parents. She didn't say much, just handed over a flash drive. Inside emails between mom and an estate attorney from 2009. In them, my mother wrote, "We need the title in our name. Elena's too naive to manage a property. She won't fight us." The courtroom was silent as that was read aloud. Celeste looked at me gently. "You okay?" I nodded, barely. I had read that line 10 times by now, but hearing it aloud felt like being erased again in front of strangers. The ruling. It didn't take long. The judge ruled the title transfer invalid, ordered the house returned to me. But he also made one thing clear. This is a legal resolution, not an emotional one. Families like yours don't heal in courtrooms. He wasn't wrong. The aftermath. The house was mine, legally. But when I drove up to it a week later, it felt unfamiliar. My parents had already moved out, left it hollow, no note, no goodbye, just silence. I walked through each room, found traces of myself I'd forgotten, photos, a chipped coffee mug, a dusty set of piano keys. I sat on the floor of my old bedroom and cried. Not because I'd won, but because I finally knew how much I had lost. A letter from Nina. A few days later, a letter came in the mail. From Nina. It wasn't long, but it mattered. I'm not proud of who I've been. I think I resented you for always having it together. But the truth is, you were holding us together. I hope you can find peace now. I'm sorry. Nina. It wasn't enough to undo years, but it was something. And sometimes something is a lot. Lily's drawing again. Inside the envelope, she'd included another drawing from Lily. This time, 3 stick figures holding hands. One in the middle wore glasses. The name written above in red crayon, Aunt Elena. It undid me. Ending part 4. The law gave me justice, but healing, that was mine to give myself. I still walk past family pictures and feel a sting. Still hear my mother's voice in quiet places of doubt. But I also sleep better now, knowing I stood up, knowing I didn't scream, didn't sabotage, didn't betray. I simply told the truth, and sometimes that's enough. 3 months had passed since the court's decision. The house was quiet, too quiet sometimes, but I was learning to live in the stillness, to sit in it without rushing to fix anyone else's discomfort, without turning pain into productivity. I planted a small herb garden in the backyard, painted the kitchen a soft sage green, hung up a framed photo of myself, not with family, but alone on a hiking trip I'd taken years ago and nearly forgotten. The house was mine now, but more importantly, so was the life inside it. A knock at the door. It was a Sunday afternoon, late spring, the kind of day where the sun peeks through just enough to warm the bones but not blind you. I was sipping tea on the porch when I heard the knock. It was Mom. No warning, no text, just her. Looking smaller than I remembered, more fragile, like grief had chipped away at her edges. "Can I come in?" she asked. I nodded, mostly out of instinct. We sat at the kitchen table in silence for a few minutes. I watched her scan the room, her old home now changed. The curtains were different. The art on the wall unfamiliar. "You've made it nice," she said softly. "Thank you." She folded her hands. I didn't come to fight or defend anything. I needed to see you. I waited, didn't push, didn't comfort, just waited. She finally spoke. "I think I spent so many years needing you to be strong. I forgot to ask if you were okay." I didn't say anything at first, because I didn't trust my voice to hold steady. She continued. "Your father, he doesn't understand. Darren's angry. Nina's trying, I think. But we all leaned on you so much that we forgot to look at you. Really look." Another pause. She looked down at her hands. "And when you stopped, I panicked. We all did. Because without you, we had to see ourselves clearly. And we didn't like what we saw." The apology. Then she did something I hadn't expected. She cried. Not theatrically, not to manipulate, but quiet tears. The kind that come from somewhere deep and dusty. "I'm sorry, Elena. For the house. For the money. For not protecting you the way a mother should have. For letting you carry more than your share. For loving the help more than the helper." That line, it hit something in me I didn't know was still tender. And I cried too. Not for her, For the girl I used to be. The girl who said yes to survive, who confused sacrifice with belonging. The offer. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. I had some savings, not much, but I want you to have it. I pushed it back gently. I don't need it. It's not about need, she said. It's about acknowledgement. I hesitated, then took the envelope. Not as repayment, but as recognition. It was the first time anyone in my family had truly tried to give back. Letting go. As she stood to leave, she paused at the door. Will I see you again? I looked at her, honest. I don't know. I'm not closing the door. But I'm not walking back through it either, not the way it was. She nodded and left. And just like that, the chapter closed. Not with a slam, but with a quiet click. Closure comes quietly. That night I sat on the porch, tea in hand. Lily's latest drawing pinned on the fridge behind me. A stick figure version of me smiling under a yellow sun. She'd visited last weekend. We'd made pancakes and built a blanket fort in the living room. No pressure, no drama, just joy. And that, I realized, was what family could be. If you stop trying to make it something it's not, and started honoring what it actually is. The email from Nina. A week later, I got an email from Nina. I'm not asking to rebuild things overnight, but if you ever want to come to Lily's school play, it's next Friday. She'd love to see you there. No pressure, just thought you should know. And I smiled. Not because everything was fixed, but because not everything had to be broken forever. A life reclaimed. I made new friends, started volunteering at a local shelter, signed up for a watercolor class at the community center. I traveled alone to Maine, watched the sunrise from a rocky coastline with no Wi-Fi, no family chat, no invisible obligations. And for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight. Final reflections. People say revenge is sweet, but I don't think that's true. What's sweet is peace. What's powerful is walking away with your dignity intact. What's transformative is realizing that family doesn't give you your worth. You do. I'll always carry some of that pain. It shaped me, but it doesn't define me. Not anymore. Final line. They told me I'd regret walking away, that I'd miss them, that I'd come back crawling. But I didn't crawl. I stood, and I didn't go back. I moved forward, and I never looked back.